Hi everyone, I'm Mr. Smith. It's Friday, mts'k'rivebi, and today we're looking at the verb to give in Georgian. This verb is fascinating because it changes its spelling so dramatically that you can barely recognize it. We're going to be looking at this verb in Screeves, which is the first time that we've ever done this. Mts'k'rivebi are the way the Georgians know what the verb is actually doing by changing the spelling. We've not done this before. It's a new challenge for 2023. So, if you're ready, let's go. Let's begin with my Instagram poster and of course the verb of the day, Mitsema. The reason for that is of course, well, there's two reasons really. It relates to lesson 45, the Mitsema, which was the dative case, just quite perfectly. And secondly, because it changes a lot. And we're going to be looking at how this verb changes by using this schematic. There are 11 outcomes that we're going to be investigating today, and we're going to see those 11 outcomes in 4 different slides. Because if we look carefully at this diagram, there are actually 4 categories. There's the 3 in 1 here, which is often the first series, everything in the present. The next 3, which is the first series, everything in the future. Then we've got 2, so just think about that. First 3 are going to be in my first slide. The next 3 are going to be in my second slide. That covers series 1 and 6 potential mutations of to give. And then we're going to look at series 2 and series 3. Now, let's just understand why. In English, we like to believe you're past, present, future. We have variations of past, different types of the present, and then we have our future, whether it's continuous or whether it's perfect or whatever tense you decide to use. Now, it's my understanding that Georgian obviously clearly doesn't function like that. Series 1 helps define what you are used to doing. You will observe in these 3 what you are doing, what you were doing, what you are used to doing, and what you would do if you were in a particular situation based upon a solid knowledge of what you're used to. Series 1 will help define what you're used to, but also what you used to do by comparing, for example, I was working in that school. I'm now working in that school. By using the verb working in the past and the present, I can tell you that I used to work there and I'm getting used to working there. Understanding a full knowledge of I was used to, I am used to, I'm getting used to something, then introduces the second group, which will be slide 2. This is known as the future section of the first series, and these are going to be talking about your speculation of what you think is going to happen in the future based upon what you know to be true about you. Your high frequency habits, the way you trend on yourself, will give you some kind of solid base as to predicting the future. No one can predict the future. But grammatically in Georgian, you can imply how sure you think something's going to happen. Normally based upon what you know about the situation, or indeed what you know about yourself, what is just regular activity. So look at series 1 as a pure definition of knowing what you're used to, what you used to do, and defining what you are getting used to. And this clearly helps us categorize series 1 as a definition of reality. Now, series 2 is very different. Series 2 is what we might call the past simple. Rather simple, isn't it? I gave something to him. This will be actually the main topic of next week's class because we're going to be looking at what's known as the aorist or narrative tense. But this checks whether it's fact or fiction. You did it or you didn't. It was broken by you or it wasn't. So it defines whether it's a story or whether it's history. Past simple narratives in Georgian step outside because they do help confirm things in a different abstract way. This is only going to tell you what you know to be real. But if it were the case of discussing another person, then an understanding of this plus this is going to give you an idea of whether you believe it to be true. And truth is fundamentally at the base of what the speaker does when they use this personality mts'k'rivebi with any verb. The series 2 also contains another category, which again, this will be slide 3. So these two will appear. They don't necessarily, in my opinion, directly relate, but this one then talks about what you want to do, what you should do, what you have to do, what you are obligated to do, and so on. I find that this one often comments on what is socially, morally, or culturally obligated. It then defines the social situation that you're in, and how you may or may not want to or need to or should react to the conditions of that environment. They all do actually work together to define your reality and the position of which you're speaking, and of course the reason why you're communicating anything at all. This third, which I call the ... in my own opinion, series, are the ones which look at past events, which of course we get identified in this particular series too, with a certain sense of doubt, a certain sense of apprehension, as if to say, I know who I am from the first series. And so the outcome, which is proven to be true, which may or may not be due to some kind of obligation, has become in doubt. And I'm not entirely sure. I wouldn't have done that, as if it never happened. What would I do if I hadn't done that? Hadn't you told me this before? I know we would look at this in English perhaps in our concept of whether it would be the perfect tenses, and indeed some people do call them the perfect. I think the most basic names for these three series are present, future, and perfect. But please understand my explanation as a relevant one, as a definition of the speaker and the function of this table, so that I can illustrate the point. Because the first thing you're going to realize is in the first series, second mts'k'rivebi, it's in the past, despite the fact that this is called the present. Slide 1, like I said, we're looking at the first three from the first series. So they are often the ones that indicate a definition of our present actions, what we're doing. And indeed, the question we should ask ourselves, ras mts'k'rivebi, what am I doing? That's the question. And the answer is going to be, for example, here, using Mitsema, me vadzlev. This means not only that I'm giving something right now, but that I generally give something. I could be talking about, for example, I give presentations in that school every week. I am voting for this singer in Eurovision, for example. We know in English that we like to have two versions, present simple, present continuous, but in Georgian it's not necessary. First screeve, first series defines a lot about what we frequently do and what we're currently doing. Me vadzlev. I know it would be fun if it was something like me Mitsema. You can't use the name of the verb in the first series in Georgian to talk about this present screeve system of three at all. We will realize the other ones are actually perfectly fine, but it separates not only in terms of its meaning in the verb Mitsema, but also in the spelling. It clearly looks like a radically different word. It doesn't happen with all verbs, but I've deliberately chosen this one because I want to test our knowledge. So, ras mts'k'rivebi, what was I doing? That's the question I'm asking myself. Me vadzlev. Now, mts'k'rivebi asks, in English we would use the word was, wouldn't we? So, I was giving. What was I giving? Vadzlev. The de on the end substitutes here what we might say the was. What was I giving? Yesterday. I'm not giving that now, perhaps. That's why I'm asking the question to myself. The next one, ras mts'k'rivebi. Now that contains the past, but it contains what could be a guess, the at the end. So, ras mts'k'rivebi, me vadzlev. If I were giving, but I'm definitely not giving. So if I were giving you 50 euros, that would be a mistake, but I'm not giving you 50 euros, I'm giving you 100 because you're my best friend and you deserve it. for example, if it were to give. So here we can see something critically important, that ras v'shvrebode questions clearly illustrate what you're not doing, and ras v'shvrebi clearly indicate what you are doing and what you regularly do. They feed in a cycle from each other. They help the listener and also the person, because these are rhetorical questions. You're literally asking yourself, what am I doing? What was I doing? And what, if I were doing this, would I be doing? Who am I? That's fundamentally what you're answering. So let's take a look at a nice example. Me vadzlev otslars chems dzmaz. Magram akamde vadzlev di ats. Me vadzlev otslars chems dzmaz. I'm giving 20 lari to my brother. It could indeed mean that I regularly give my brother this much money. It tells you that I have a brother and that I'm regularly giving that type of money. He expects 20 lari from me. Magram akamde vadzlev di ats. But previously I was giving him 10 though. I'm now comparing the first screeve with the second screeve to illustrate that there is a change in my behavior. What I was doing in terms of the quantity of money I gave my brother compared to what I'm giving now. Me vadzlev achla otslars chemsmaz. Magram akamde vadzlev di ats. But previously, I was giving him 10 though. Again, as I looked at this from my introduction, I'm giving 20 lari to my brother. I used to give him 10 though. Can you see what's going on here? There's a new trend in my behavior, and I'm comparing it. The more I live, the more I do, the bigger this series 1 becomes. And the more it defines me, and the more I understand myself. This is obviously with the verb to give. Each verb has a meaning. And so you can't always process a verb with a radically different meaning with the same formula and get the same definition. That, like any other language, depends on context, it depends on intention, and it depends a lot on what the verb actually does and the outcome and perhaps the function of that verb. But fundamentally speaking, what am I doing? What was I doing? And what would I be doing if I were doing that? This one is a guess. Netav, if only, vadzlevde aslars. Vadzlevde aslars. I'm not giving 100 lari to my brother. I used to give him 10. Now I'm giving him 20. I wish I could give him 100. My act of giving has been modified. So netav, I wish. In Spanish we say ojalá, if only I could, you know. But netav vadzlevde. This de is now giving us this were, because of course it is a past indicator, but this is giving us this concept of if only. So I wish if only I were giving him 100 lari, but I'm not giving it. But if I were. So here we can show perhaps in the third one what I would like to do based upon comparing what I'm definitely not doing. Slide 2 are the next 3 screeves from the first series, and that completes the series. And so looking at this now, we've got 3 questions that we're going to answer. The first one is basically, what's my next move? Ras vizam, what's next? What'll I do next? Ras vizam di. Ras vizam di is what should I do in a certain way, what I would like to do, what I'd do concretely. And then ras vizam de is if I were to do it, then I'd do that. As we can see, this one, as in English, the third one is more of a guess. And is it a high frequency tense? No. This one's extremely high frequency. It's so high frequency that it actually names the series. Indeed, it's called the future series, even though this one, indeed, the third one, is a pure guess. However, what are you basing your guess on? You're basing your guess on what you believe to be true at the moment of speaking, which could be then all of the things that you understand from the first 3 Screeves of series number 1, which do describe what you do, what you are used to doing, and what you used to do. Right? So, raz vizam mivtsem. Me mivtsem otzlars mas. I'll give 20 lari to him. Me mivtsem otzlars mas. He is expecting money from me, for sure. Mivtsem di aslars chenzmas. Magra mivtsem mcholot otz. Of course, we can see mivtsem here, but in a different sentence. Mivtsem di aslars chenzmas. Magram mivtsem mcholot otz. I'd give 100 lari to my brother, but I'll give him only 20. The first one suggests what is the thing I wish I would do, and the second one is telling exactly what is going to happen. There is a reduction of 80 euros here. I don't know why. There's less money in my bank. Maybe my brother annoyed me. But the bottom line is that this one is speculative. He is never going to expect 100 lari from me. That is not a future outcome. He's definitely expecting those 20 from me. That is likely. He's counting the 20. Why I decided to insist upon mentioning 100 lari that I have no intention of giving, well, maybe that's about my character, not about giving. So, Mirom mivtsem de puls bednieri viknebodi. Now, this is quite a complex one, and indeed it contains a second case where the verb to be is now in the same future speculative tense. If I were to manage to give him money, if I were in a situation where money was being given, I would be happy. The presence of money in his pocket would bring me happiness, but I am in no process of giving not even 1 lari. And so this happiness that I predict I would feel, again, look at it. This is just another verb, viknebodi, using this de. This is the future tense from what I am, what I would be. So, me rom mivtsem de puls bednieri viknebodi. If I were to give him money, I'd be happy. If I were to manage to give him money, manage to achieve to do that, if that were the situation, then this is what I'd do, this is what I'd feel. So here we can see they're all about speculations. However, we can see there is a decline in terms of absolute certainty. This, let's say, is 100%. This one seems to be 80%. This one seems to be 80%, but it's just a guess. Slide 3 are Screeves 7 and 8. What really separates them is the fact that you don't need this dative s anymore. It's gone. What we're going to use, for example, is the question, what did I do? Ravkeni, what did I do? And then I could say mivetsi, which is the construction here. Let's just look at the purple as a sort of past indicator here. It's not, okay? Literally not. But I'm looking for a way for us to see the woods, for the trees in this case. So, Ravkeni, me mas atilari mivetsi. I gave him 10 lari. They left my pocket. They are no longer in my pocket. Done. This is a fact. Now, Ravkana is a bit of a future speculation. You know, this is a future speculation that doesn't require an S. Because in the others, we needed that dative S. So this is a future speculation that doesn't require an S, that really orientates around what you should do. And it's almost like W2F, you know, like WTF. What should I do next? Perhaps I just don't know. The previous examples were all based upon predictions that you made based upon knowing yourself. Here, the jury is out. This also includes what you want to do. That might not be what you should do and what you must do. So what I really like about this Screeve is that it does operate in its own little world, and bit by bit we're going to have lots of practice answering the question Ravkna and with a smiley here, because it is one of the classes that I look forward to. Slide 4 are the 3 Screeves from series number 3, and they are the most challenging. And for native speakers of Georgian, when they go to school, they are also the most challenging. Because as a young person, you do not get into scenarios where these are required. They are highly complex scenarios. You need to have lived to have a necessity for these particular scenarios to be required in their absolute meaning. I will say that this series is the one that I struggle the most with, not because of the grammar entirely, but just situationally I have zero fluency when it comes to using them. That's the point. But I'd like to say that, of course, what I'm aware of is that the first Screeve from series number 3 is as if that I'm not completely sold. Did I do that? There is an element of doubt that what's been reported to you or what you've understood to have happened isn't entirely true, doesn't match with your reality. So it's a perfect tense based on the past. So mitsea can be translated as, it seems that I have given, allegedly I gave, did I? You need context. We need a situation. We are just looking at the most important thing, I suppose the biggest takeaway, there's no V. There is no V here to personally identify me. It's been substituted with M. Isn't that strange? So that's how I identify it with the verb Mitsema, because the V is missing. And what is fascinating here, moving on to the second one, if I had given money, if I had, there's a question of doubt, isn't there? Now, I'm confirming that I didn't. So if I had given money to that person, then this would have been the outcome. There is a past narrative relative to an if. Again, highly complex. If you're a 5-year-old, do you necessarily have scenarios where you need this tense? No. So native Georgians' knowledge of the last 3 in series 3 grows as they get older in more complex semi-adult scenarios. Moving into the future perfect, of course, I hope to have given it is the me, metses. What we can see here, of course, like I said, the V is out and the S is here. This S is usually attributed to the third person, but suddenly it's pegged on to me. So this one contains pieces from different directions. I personally think that that's what allows the Georgian reader to see the element of doubt and speculation. This one is a future subjunctive, where in a scenario that I predict that has more or less just started, there is an expected outcome that I hope to have attained. Will I manage it? I don't know. But I hope to have given this by this time. Highly speculative, a semi-informed decision based upon desire, but can you bank on the 11th Screeve? No. Can you fully trust the outcome of Screeve number 10? No. Is there clear doubt in Screeve number 9 that what was reported to you, what has happened, did really happen? Well, that's a question to debate. So just like to say, I am finishing series 3 with a question mark, but you can see here, at least at this stage, what you're looking out for if and when required. That's the last slide of today, and thank you very much. Next week, we're looking at the second brunva in Georgian. This is known as the narrative brunva, the past tense brunva, the aorist brunva. It's got more names than it does have explanations, and that's what we're going to challenge ourselves to do next week. So, have a nice weekend, and I'll see you then. Bye. Mts'k'rivebi